Hi gang, Scott Davenport here and welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. Today's video is a live edit, live in air quotes. It's not live streaming, but what it is, I'm taking a photo from my library that I've never worked on before. We're trying to record, I start processing, and I'll explain what's going through my mind and why I'm making certain changes along the way. And I think it's a fun way to learn about post-processing. You get to hear what I'm thinking and why I'm doing things as opposed to just do A, B, and C. And if you are in the Patreon membership, if you're one of my Patreon supporters, I did a live edit of one of your photos. And so if you're in Patreon, pop on over there, check it out. It was a lot of fun. It was a travel photo and something that was very different for me to work on, and I enjoyed doing it. Hopefully the Patreon members enjoyed that as well. Thanks very much for those that are supporting me through Patreon. And let's get into this live edit. So this is one of the photos of the Shudik Peninsula at the end of what you saw in the field earlier this week. And I had shown the finished processed version of when the sun had actually peeked through the clouds, which was really, really nice. But I liked the vertical orientation of this shot. It's a slightly different set of reflecting pools, and it was these lines that really drew me to capturing this photo in the first place. So I wanted to work on that here. So what do I normally do here? Image assessment, what do I need to do with the photo? Looks like a little bit of alignment. I certainly want to play up the warm, cool tones that are going on here. The rocks have like this orangey, reddish tone to them already. Certainly plenty of blue up in the sky and in the water, and then hints of nice warmth over here. Play with all those things. A little bit of cleanup. I can see like a white spot over here, and that might be a reflection off of the rock, but it's distracting. I'm going to decide whether or not to get rid of this little bit inside the reflecting pool. And maybe this little tuft of green. Let's see how things go as the shadows and highlights and things get opened up. Maybe play that up as well. Let's start off with the fundamentals. Make sure my lens corrections are on. I don't need to do chromatic aberration. That's done by the camera profile already. And R key, let's check the crop. That looks pretty good. This is a little bit of a deceiving horizon. But, because of the way the hills are, there's a lot of mist out there. That actually looks pretty okay. So we'll keep that. Now, basics. I'm going to press the J key here. We got a little bit of blown highlights. And the shadows, I don't mind pure blacks in there. Let's start with the profile. I tend to like landscape from Adobe. I will visit Vivid. Nope, I like the landscape, and it's already, oops, wrong one. It's already playing up that warm tone, cool tone idea that I already mentioned. So that's nice. White balance, let's try auto. That's a little bit too warm for my tastes. Let me select something else that might be more neutral. That's even warmer. All right, so we'll just be, let's go back to the auto setting. And we'll be a little just creative on this. All right, so what I'm already feeling is I'm going to need to do some localized temperature adjustments. I've done other videos on this technique, and so I like what the warmth, like even like daylight or cloudy would be even a little bit warmer. I like what it's doing to the rocks. It's washing out the reflecting pool a little bit. I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I'm a little bit disappointed in the sky. I like that that moodier blue there. But you know what? I think I'll go with cloudy. And perhaps when I get into some of the localized adjustments, playing up the blues of the underbelly on this sky here, that could actually be a nice amplification of the warm, cool idea that I have for this scene. What else needs to happen? Some general overall kind of exposure management, let's say. Let's try auto. Okay, now this is feeling just a little bit, I liked what it did to the foreground. It opened up the foreground. I want that background to get a little darker. Let me just quickly do an undo on that so I can compare. Okay, so it really just focused its attention on the foreground, and that's good. I'm going to take that. What else? Clarity, I'll nudge a small amount. Texture, I'll push a little harder, because texture is going to focus in on the midtones, and it's not going to affect things like the sky as much. And that's a really, really nice bump. That already, before and after. This photo already looks very, very different. I want to take a look at that before again. So I must say I do prefer the warmer look. So I'm glad I spent the time with that white balance adjustment. All right, let's deal with some of these little distractions up over here. Whatever this is, it's going to go away. It's just pulling my eye away from the scene. So it's not adding to my story. Yeah, it was a natural, shine from water, but I don't need it. Now the other one is, okay, now that I see it at full size, that one doesn't bug me. I've got other hints of rocks that are under the water. I want to leave that there. In a thumbnail, even at a thumbnail size or a zoomed out size, that's okay. This little spot here, there's nothing fundamentally, it's not a spot per se, but it's just drawing my eye away. And then let me just do the visualize spots to check for anything up in the sky. Zoom in, function arrow, so I can make sure I visit all the areas of that sky. That looks good. We'll go back up into our sky. And that looks good too. I don't see anything else out over there. Oh, right. Okay. So what's next? I certainly want the rocks to get more punch. I want to tone down the sky a little bit as far as its exposure. Let's start with the sky. So I'm going to drag downward with this graduated filter. Actually, I have a separate video on directions for dragging the filter so you can speed up your workflow a little bit. All right, we're deepening that exposure. Let's cool it down a little bit. Ooh, you know what? I'm not going to do the cooling that way. We're going to do that slightly differently. Let's take it just a quarter stop before and after. And now let's move that there. I'm going to duplicate that pin. So I know I have a second gradient sitting right on top of the first one. I'm going to play with the color now. So instead, we'll do the temperature. Now, initially, this is going to affect everything. And I'm okay with that right now. I'm going to back it off with a range mask. So what I want to target is the underbelly, the darker parts of those clouds. So if I squash the range really, really small, there's virtually like no effect. And as I open that range up, we'll start to see more of that cool tone creeping into the sky. And the only way I can probably show that is let's reset the temperature before, after. Okay, I'll have to increase that range a little bit more, I think. Let's push the range even farther, back it off a little bit, tighten up the smoothness. That's getting better. Let's do that before and after one more time. Before, after. You can see it right up in here. It's just deepening those areas. It's letting a little bit more of this nuanced color and texture come through. A subtle one, but I like that. It's a nice accentuation. Let's be done with that one. And now for the foreground, adding some more punch to these rocks. Now I'm already thinking about if I brought this into on one, throw dynamic contrast on there, a couple of steps, I'll have my masking done. I'm going to give this a shot in Lightroom and leveraging a color range mask. So let's just give some texture, give some clarity. This will be a little bit too much right now. That's okay. And we'll do a color range mask, eyedropper, and let me choose kind of like this level of tones. And we'll look at the mask that it's created. Not so great. Let's see how well, as we start backing away, yeah, that range is all the way down as far as it can go, and I'm not getting the desired result. All right, so this is not going to fly in Lightroom. So I will bring this over into On1 Photo Raw, mainly to get these rocks popping a little bit more. And while I'm there, I know I've got some good color tools as well, so I can punch up this little green tuft. I like that. That's like this little extra accent for the scene. So let's send this on over to On1 Photo Raw, File, Plugin Extras, and I can send it right over to Effects 2019. And in Photo Raw, in Effects, let's get my favorite dynamic contrast, and that is just Nice. Oh, as a matter of fact, because this filter is so smart, it's really already quite subtle on the reflected parts of the sky. And even in the sky, I might just take this globally as is. That is really just a nice, this natural, which is the default. That's a nice accent. I don't want to go too overboard. I don't want to introduce halos. That's really nice. Let's just go with that and grab a color adjustment, foliage, and I'll target this, invert, paint in. And so I'm just going to paint this in on this little patch of green. Let's get the opacity of that brush all the way up. Paint that in on this patch of green here, just as a tiny little accent, calling attention, hey, check out this little splash of color here. Before and after, subtle but noticeable. Before, after. Finishing it up, let's see here. Let's play with the vignette. Since I'm in this tool, I'll use the vignette. On1's got a great vignette tool. I like subtle as a starting point. Bring the feather down. I like to bring the brightness down so I can see the edge. Roundness, let's do something like that, but a bigger size. And let's bring this down a little. This is the area of the photo that's the interesting part. It's the foreground. And then finally bring that brightness back up a little bit. Let's see before and after with the vignette. I still kind of notice it here. I don't want to actually notice the vignette. I don't want the vignette to really be invisible. Let's see. When I can see the vignette, that's no good. I'm losing a little bit on my my tuft of grass there, so nudge this down. That looks like about center. You can check that with the feather. I'm a little bit off. Okay, crosshair. Nudge that way. That's pretty far down, so I shouldn't lose the tuft of grass there. And maybe bring that brightness up a little bit more. Let's see before and after on that. Before and after. I'm mainly checking the sky because, again, I don't want the line of the vignette or the gradation to be obvious. Photographers will look at it and go, oh yeah, you added a vignette. Someone who's just looking at it that's not familiar with post-processing or working with a camera, they'll see it and it will look natural and their eye will just move into the center of the frame. I'm good with that. Let me just take a look at before and after from On1. So before, this is what we came from Lightroom, and after with On1, a couple of things, and I think we're good to go. So I'll hit done on that, send it back over to Lightroom, and this one's going to be complete. Well, that is the finished photo. Let's have one more look at it here. Let me double tap L to go into the lights out mode. And this is warmer than I had anticipated creating this photo when I started. But after spending a little time with the white balance and playing around with it, that felt good, especially how it's making the rocks really their natural colors coming through quite nicely. So I'm happy with the photo. I think this is a good one and a nice one to share. It's always good when the live edit turns out to be a pleasing photo as opposed to a meh photo. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, let me know somehow. Comments below, questions about photography, feel free to hit me up in the comments. You want to keep it private, send it to me through my website. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.